Hello, welcome to my video. I am going to explain what exact measurements we need to know in order to start cutting out the wood that we're going to use to build this shelf. So you can see I have examples of these parts here because this is drawn to full scale. These are exactly the same size as what's on paper. And before I can cut these, I need to know how much and at what angle I'm going to cut each of these pieces of wood. So here's what you need to measure, and I have it highlighted here. We are going to measure on this leg part here, what would be the shorter side. I have mine labeled J to K, and with the ruler I measured it, and on mine it was 2 3/8 inches. It's different than this measurement that you use to find the angle. It's the full length of that piece, which would be the shorter of the two. So that's the first one you need to find. We also need to know the total length of the shelf, which you probably decided on when you did your brainstorming. That's this long piece here. Mine is 12 inches total length. And we also need to know how long this upright is going to be, and mine is 6. And that's measured all the way to the inside here. I have mine labeled HI. So we have those 3 measurements, and then you should have also by this point done some trigonometry. Use the inverse tangent after measuring these two to find out an angle. Now we'll see here in a minute why we need to find the complement of that, which is that subtracted from 90, because that's the way that the saw is set up. Mine is 11.5 inches, which is going to be that angle there. So you're going to want to write all of those things down. Your total length, whatever you called it on my diagram, it's AB. Your upright length, minus 6. Your leg length, and that bevel angle. On mine it's 11.5. It's the complement of this. Those two add up to 90. The other thing we need is we're going to start with one long board. So we're going to add up all those numbers. So I took all those numbers, 12, 6, about 2.5, just rounded up. And then I added an inch of extra because we're going to lose some every time we make a cut. I added all that up. I ended up with 21.5. That's the size of the board I'm going to start with. So when you have all of that measured or calculated, you're ready to start cutting some wood. Now that I have my measurements highlighted and calculated, I'm ready to go to the miter saw. I have a piece of wood already picked out here. I have calculated that I need to start with, after adding up all my measurements plus an inch extra, 21.5 inches. Yours is probably different. I'm going to push the board down to 21.5. You're going to push it down to whichever amount yours is, and I'm going to make that cut. Here I am at the jointer. I'm going to mark this on 2 adjacent faces, one face, one edge, and the corner that I'm going to square up. Then I'm going to proceed to flatten this and square up this corner. We are at the planer. We're probably going to have to do a couple of passes to get this down to exactly 3/4 of an inch. Here I am at the table saw. I'm going to decide what the width of my shelf is going to be. I'll see how much I have to work with here. On this board I have about 5.5. I need to cut this edge off for sure because it's rough. So I'm going to make this one 5 inches. So I'm going to go and move the fence over to exactly 5. And it doesn't really matter what this is, as long as the entire board is the same width, it's going to work. Got my push stick ready. Right hand. Alright, here I am back at the miter saw. I brought my plan, I got my board. Let's take a look at what we need to figure out for these cuts. We are going to start by cutting the smallest piece, then the medium-sized piece, which is the upright, and then the last piece we're going to cut is the long piece, which is the total length. So those are the measurements we need to know, and the bevel angle that we calculated before we got here. Alright, first I'm going to show you how to set the bevel angle. Mine is 11.5, yours is probably different. The bevel is the angle of the blade this way or this way. We're going to set our bevel to that direction, so we're going to look at that gauge on the right. To unlock the bevel, we're going to use this handle right here. We're going to lift that up. Then we should be able to move that gauge over. Now looking closely here, mine needs to be at 11.5. There's no half mark on mine. That right there is about 10. So I know the next mark is 11, and I'll go halfway in between the next two lines. That is 11.5. Let's see if I can zoom in there a little bit more. Alright. Before I use the saw, have to make sure that we lock that back down so that that saw isn't going anywhere. So it's tilted this direction. Alright, we're going to cut the small piece. Notice that's that angle right there. That's that 11.5. My part is 2 3/8 inches, and that is the distance between that point J on mine and K. So on the ruler over here, I'm going to find that. Notice 1 3/4 is where the tape starts, so 2 3/8 is going to be there. So I'm going to take my long board. I'm going to find that measurement, 2 3/8, and get that corner to line up with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and make that cut, double checking all my measurements. Alright, let's see how we did compared to the plan here. Looks like it works for me. Alright. Before we go on to the next cut, we need to put the saw back to 90 degrees. So, lift up the handle. There's the stop. Should be at 0 over here. And lock that handle back down. And then I'm going to cut off this end here. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit and get a 90-degree angle. Alright, got my 90-degree angle. I'm ready for my next cut. My next cut is my medium-sized piece, 6 inches. See this piece right here. So, I'm going to move this over, set it right at the 6 amount. Go ahead and make that cut. There's my second piece. See how it fits in our plan here. Looks perfect. Alright, our last piece is the long piece, which is 12 inches. So I could measure this. Since I only have a ruler on this side for now, I'm going to make this cut left-handed by putting this end here and just cutting this end off. there is my third piece, 12 inches. All right, now I got my 3 pieces. My next step is going to be to measure and mark where these dado are gonna go.